So after the announcement that Avengers Secret Wars was going to be coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the earliest rumours that started to circulate was that Kevin Feige wants to bring back everybody to this movie. And this also includes, theoretically, everybody that we've lost so far throughout the MCU, including Iron Man, Black Widow, and Captain America. But how would that even be possible? Well, the obvious answer is that there'll be variants of those characters that appear from different timelines throughout the multiverse. However, there are ways and theories in which those three characters could come back as the original ones from the main timeline that we lost in Avengers Endgame. The question is, how? Well, in the case of Iron Man, Tony Stark, it's possible that he actually travelled to the Soul World after he used the Infinity Gauntlet and it killed him. And this theory really comes from the fact that in Infinity War, after Thanos used the Infinity Gauntlet, he actually travelled briefly to the Soul World when he used it, where he met child Gamora and was able to have a conversation with her. But Thanos, being obviously one of the strongest beings in the universe, was able to survive and come back to reality. There are also deleted scenes that exist of Tony Stark going to the same Soul World and meeting his slightly more grown-up daughter. So it's possible that although that scene was deleted, he's actually still there. He's in the Soul World, and that's where he's stuck because he was eventually killed by the Infinity Stones. Similarly with Black Widow, the same kind of theory sort of starts to arise. When we see child Gamora in the Soul World with Thanos, she's there not only because that's his memories, but it may also be the case that she's there because she was the one who was the victim in order to get the Soul Stone. So is it possible that Black Widow eventually suffered from the same fate? Her physical body may have gone, but her soul has gone to the Soul World now. The question is, as their physical bodies have gone, how do you get them back and not just essentially a ghost? Well, the answer comes from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. More specifically, it's the Darkhold that holds the key, because in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. you may remember that Madam Hydra, who was originally just existing in a virtual world, was able to use the Darkhold to create a machine that would actually manifest her into a physical being. So it's entirely possible that if you could get the Darkhold, you could do exactly the same thing and bring people back from the Soul World into the physical world. But hang on a minute, the Darkholds were all supposed to have been destroyed in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But let's be honest, this is Marvel. It's entirely possible that there's still one that exists out there somewhere. It's also physically possible that if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still to remain canon, the Darkhold that appeared in that was taken by Ghost Rider to parts unknown, presumably down into the depths of hell. It's possible that that Darkhold might still survive, because the Darkholds that have been destroyed are all ones that have been destroyed across the multiverse. But what if the Darkhold that Ghost Rider took back to, theoretically hell, is somehow a world between worlds, and therefore it's able to survive? So there could still be a copy of it out there that could be used to bring people back from the Soul World. Having said that, it also is entirely possible that the one that we see destroyed in the Multiverse of Madness could also be brought back by somebody who was just powerful enough and had the knowledge to be able to do it. There's plenty of people out there that will probably be capable of doing it, Scarlet Witch being one, but also perhaps Agatha, perhaps people like Vision, perhaps even Mephisto, if eventually he does turn up. And even if you couldn't get the actual Darkhold back, let's not forget that the original Darkhold writing is written all over the walls of the temple that gets destroyed in that Doctor Strange movie. Well, all you'd need to do is just rebuild that temple, and then voila, you have all of the wording back, and then you could rewrite the Darkhold from scratch. So those are just some ideas as to how you could bring back Tony Stark and Natasha Romanoff and put their original characters back into the main timeline. But you could also just go down the simple route of just using variants from alternative timelines within the multiverse. And for that, you wouldn't even have to cast the original actors. You could get someone completely different to play those characters, because you could have variants played by basically anybody. But for it to have a real impact and be successful, I suspect that you would want to bring back Robert Downey Jr. and preferably Scarlett Johansson to reprise those roles, because it would have more of an impact on the audience knowing who those characters were and being able to recognise them properly. That does, though, leave the problem with Steve Rogers, the original Captain America. How do you bring him back? Well, I suspect the only way that you'd be able to do that is probably with a variant. If you stick to the original timeline one, well, he's now really old and probably, well, I mean, he may be gone. We don't know. It's never actually been confirmed. It's suggested that he passed away in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, although never confirmed. We would assume that. Again, the Darkhold may be able to do certain things, including bringing back people that have gone, but it's entirely possible and probably easier that we just used a variant and bring him back that way. All of that said though, is it actually the right thing to do? Let's be honest, Avengers Endgame was emotionally impactful on the audience, who really dealt with a lot of emotion and losing these characters that really meant a lot to them, particularly Iron Man and particularly Black Widow. So it wouldn't necessarily feel right to suddenly bring them back really just for the sake of it, because it means that their passing loses the impact that it had emotionally with its audience. Why should we care about characters who cease to exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe if they're just going to be brought back? If they're essentially immortal and Marvel just bring back whatever character has gone, then the actual impact of them going in the first place is completely lost. From a cinematic and storytelling point of view, it actually loses something to the audience because the impact of it is just essentially wasted. So while I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to do, I still think it's theoretically possible and still remain within the proper storytelling timeline. It's just that from an emotional standpoint, I don't think it's the right idea, and I don't think it's necessarily a good thing in terms of the actual audience experience. But who knows, if Kevin Feige really does want to bring back everybody for Avengers Secret Wars, then it's certainly going to be impactful and potentially incredible to see. But it remains to be seen how they're going to do it, if they're going to do it, and exactly whether or not we will see the original actors coming back, or whether they'll just be variants played by alternative people. But what do you think? Do you want to see these characters come back? Or like me, do you think that it loses something from the impact of having lost them the first time round? Or would you really want to see them come back? Would that be something that actually is going to make you want to enjoy this movie even more? Please leave a comment, please like the video, please subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys real soon.